So this family adopts a child, and her name is Natalia. Now Natalia, she's from the Ukraine, and she's a sweet little girl looking for a loving family. And she finally gets adopted by the Barnett family. However, just months after bringing her home, the family start to notice something's off. Like, something's really weird about her. Because Natalia isn't acting like a typical 6-year-old. She has a deep vocabulary and she never speaks in a Ukrainian accent. And she seems to understand things a typical child wouldn't. But that's not the craziest part. Because one day, while giving Natalia a bath, her adopted mother, Kristen, makes a shocking discovery. Natalia has hair in her vajayjay. She's already gone through puberty at 6 years old. And that's when Kristen realizes that Natalia isn't a little girl. She's a grown-ass woman. And not just that, she's dangerous. One night, Kristen wakes up and finds Natalia standing at the foot of her bed, just staring at her. Not blinking, not moving, just a blank stare. Then she swears she sees Natalia spreading cleaning solution on their food. When she asks her what she was doing, Natalia allegedly smiled and says, "I'm trying to poison you." And then there was a time she tried to push her youngest brother into an electric fence. At this point, the Barnetts are convinced Natalia isn't a child. She's a full-grown con artist. A psychopath who manipulated her way into their home so she could kill them in their sleep. And they had to do something fast before it was too late. So the Barnetts start to investigate. They take Natalia to doctors, multiple doctors, trying to prove that she's older than she claims to be. And that's when they start hearing things that terrify them. One doctor says Natalia has the bone structure of a teenager. Another says she has adult teeth. One specialist even claims that based on her physical development, Natalia could be anywhere from 18 to 30 years old. And that's all the Barnetts needed to hear. They go to a judge and say that this girl is not a child. She's a grown woman and we have the proof. And somehow, they win. A judge officially changes Natalia's birth year from 2003 to 1989. Meaning overnight, she goes from being an 8-year-old to a 22-year-old woman. And now that she's legally an adult, the Barnetts dump her. They rent her a tiny apartment in Indiana, pay the first few months rent, and then they move to Canada. Because legally, she's now an adult. So it's not child abandonment, right? At this point, Natalia is completely alone. She has no idea how to take care of herself. She can't get a job. She can't drive. Her landlord starts asking questions. Where are your parents? Why are you living alone? Eventually, the police get involved. They start looking into her story. And guess what? Things don't add up. Meanwhile, Natalia is bouncing between homes, staying with strangers, trying to survive. Meanwhile, the media's going wild, making Natalia look like a con artist, completely ruining her reputation. But here's the part nobody expected. Because after years of people calling Natalia a scammer, the truth finally comes out. A team of medical experts runs advanced tests on Natalia. Stuff that's way more accurate than the original bone density scans that Barnetts used. And what did they find? Natalia was telling the truth the entire time. Meaning the Barnetts didn't just abandon a dangerous fraudster, they legally re-aged a child and left her to fend for herself. And here's the worst part. Once the Barnetts were sent to trial for child neglect, the courts ruled that because Natalia was legally an adult at the time of her abandonment, the Barnetts couldn't be charged with child neglect. That's right, they got away with it. No jail time, no penalties. Just a free pass to abandon their adopted daughter and move on with their lives. Today, Natalia Grace is in her 20s and finally living with a real loving family. She's working on getting her GED and dreaming about becoming a teacher. But let's be real, how do you even recover for something like this? How do you rebuild your life when the entire world has called you a con artist, a killer, a monster, all because the people who are supposed to love you threw you away? Personally, I think the Barnetts just couldn't handle a traumatized child, so they just neglected her. But what's your take on this? Was Natalia actually a psychopath? Or were the Barnetts just lousy parents? Either way, the Barnetts should suffer the consequences of their actions.